Hello. First tonight, the investigation into a firework display after 20 people were injured.
Around 100 people went to the show last night at a scout hut in Leighton Buzzard. After half an hour, one of the fireworks misfired into the crowd. A 5-year-old boy was among the many people who were treated for burns and cuts.
All firework nights are supposed to go with a bang. But today, spectators from last night's display in Leighton Buzzard are still talking about the event for all the wrong reasons. Just after 7:30, part of a firework deviated off course and flew into the crowd. 20 people suffered burns, some were taken to hospital. This morning, as council inspectors arrived to gather evidence, Janet Salisbury, who was injured on the thighs, spoke of the chaos.
All the fireworks were pretty good, and then this one firework just come shooting across the field, and when I saw it coming, I just picked my son up, just tried to move him out of the way, and I don't know if he lifted his hand up, but he got like flash burns when it exploded, and I didn't even realise I got hit, but I was in like a state of shock and everything, and my friend, she was like thrown to the floor, and all I could hear was children screaming.
So now come the questions. Essex Pyrotechnics Limited told us they sold the fireworks to a man with relevant training. Some of them were Category 4, which are for professional use only. Professional firers using this type of firework usually need an industry standard certificate, public liability insurance and licensed storage. The Scout Association says insurance was in place, but is trying to work out exactly who was in charge and whether these other rules apply. Despite last night's incident, this firework expert says this sort of thing is rare.
The firework industry as a whole has an extremely good safety record, and this last weekend of all the hundreds and thousands of displays that went off, the testimonies of that, it's very regrettable that this incident should have taken place, and we obviously as a firework industry will be wanting to know exactly what went wrong so we can all learn from it.
The Scout Association is now launching an investigation of its own and says it will cooperate with other authorities trying to work out why this family night went so horribly wrong. Jo Black, BBC Look East.
BBC Local Radio will release figures tomorrow that show bed blocking is still a major issue for some of the region's hospitals. The government is now investing millions of pounds in so-called reablement services. The aim, to get elderly patients off the wards and back into their own homes.
80-year-old Mary Hall is recovering from her second hip replacement operation in 4 years. After the first, routine activities like getting dressed and making tea suddenly became an uphill struggle. By her own admission, she needed help. Now she's getting it.
All right, Mary, I'm going to put some cream in your leg, yeah?
Love it. It feels lovely when you put that on. It makes all the difference. I just can't thank them enough. It's really a marvellous system. I hope it never ends for other people like me and a lot worse than me. And all this help with the carers, I mean, couldn't ask for more really. It's absolutely fantastic. Never had that before.
Everyone you ask them, you rather have the kid at hospital or come home, and they say to you, we'd rather go home, and they know they're secure and confident enough that someone is there to help them.
The scheme available to the over 65s is a joint venture between the NHS and the County Council. It won't comment on fears that swinging budget cuts could scupper the new service just as it's getting off the ground.
What we're doing is saying, well, actually, what's going to enable you to be able to look after yourself more effectively? And often that's about confidence, often that's about physical functioning, and then putting the staff in to work with that individual. And our aim is that 40% of older people, when at the end of the scheme, won't need any of our support at all, and they'll be fully independent, and their quality of life will be improved.
For Mary Hall, the daily support has been invaluable in speeding recovery. Supporters of the scheme say its other great virtue is its cost-effectiveness. Kim Riley, BBC Look East.
Well, all this week we're looking at the issues associated with living longer. At the moment, 142,000 people in this region are more than 85 years old. That's one person in every 40. Over the next 20 years, that figure will go up to 366,000. That's one in every 20. That'll put even more pressure on services and mean some difficult choices for many families. Nikki Jenkins has been to meet the oldest person in Britain.
A life that has spanned 3 centuries and nurtured 3 generations. But at 111 years old, the carer is now the cared for.
It's something that we've always done in the family, so it was, looking after each other. For way back, Mum looked after her parents, they looked after theirs, and we're going back in the 1800s, and it was just the same then. So we have just carried on the tradition, I suppose you can now call it, couldn't you?
I looked after me old mum. Oh, I didn't have a bad life, really.
Didn't have a bad life?
No.
You've had a happy life?
A happy one. Yes, it was a happy one. Of course, Mum made it happy.
At the age of 73, Barbara has given most of her life to caring, looking after not just her parents, but her in-laws too.
I was a nurse anyway, and so it sort of was an extension of what I was doing. So I never felt as though I've retired. I've carried on nursing as though, so it felt anyway.
Did you resent that at all? Or?
Part of me did, certain times, when I was thinking I should be off and doing some other things, but you sort of accept your role and grow into it in a way, I suppose, don't you?
And that's how it was for a quarter of a century. Yet Barbara still felt guilty when the time came to move her mum into a home.
She was 107 years old before
Before we gave up, yes. Yeah, just sort of felt as though I hadn't finished what I'd intended to do.
And in a family of such long livers, there's a very real chance that Barbara will need to be cared for by her daughter too.
Do you worry that you'll be a burden in turn on Alison?
Yes, I do, yeah. But I shall try not to be.
My husband sort of looks at his mother-in-law like, well, how long is she going to keep going, Husbands are like his mother-in-laws. Yeah.
But for Alison, there's no doubt.
It is an honour to look, look after your parents and your grandparents.
As to whether the courtesy will extend to the next generation, well, Edward's keeping mum. Nikki Jenkins, BBC Look East in Wilstead.
A wonderful family. Well, tonight we'd like to hear from you. Kim Riley is in the newsroom now. Kim.
Yeah, we've just heard from Margaret and her family. What do you think about what they said? Was Alison right when she said it's an honour to look after your parents and grandparents? Can we learn quite a lot from the way that in the old days people used to look after their older family members? And what do you think about that other story we covered, the reablement scheme that we were talking about in Cambridgeshire and other parts of the region? We'd like to hear from you anything about living longer. The telephone number 08457 630 630, or email us please. That's on look.east@bbc.co.uk. And be quick, because I'll be back a little bit later with some of your comments.